The first experiments with all-wheel drive appeared much earlier than commonly believed, at the end of the 19th century. This development was a response to the limitations of early automobiles, which quickly lost traction on slippery or uneven surfaces. The most famous examples in history belong to the young Ferdinand Porsche, who, at the turn of the century, he designed vehicles with electric motors located in the wheel hubs, and later, hybrids, combining internal combustion and electric power. Simultaneously, in 1902, the Spiker brothers presented a racing car with permanent all-wheel drive. However, the design was expensive, complex, and intended solely for the track, not for everyday use. Among the sporty and experimental designs, the Daimler Motorengesellschaft initiative stands out, being one of the first to recognize the potential of 4x4 drive beyond sport. At the beginning of the 20th century, European colonial empires needed reliable means of transportation, capable of navigating areas where roads did not exist. The African colonies of the German Empire provided an ideal testing ground. Instead of horses, which tired quickly and required logistics, they decided to test a modern automobile. Thus, the concept was born, a vehicle that was neither a race car nor a luxury limousine, but a work tool, the beginning of the off-road vehicle as we know it today. The innovative vehicle was named the Dernburg-Wagen in honor of Bernhard Dernburg, Secretary of State for Colonial Affairs of the German Reich. Dernburg advocated for modernizing the administration and infrastructure of the colonies, and the car was intended to become a symbol of this ideal. The project was entrusted to Paul Daimler, son of Gottlieb Daimler, who was one of the company's most talented engineers at the time. Construction was completed in 1907 at the Berlin Marienfelde plant. Only one example was built without compromise on cost, with the extreme climatic and terrain conditions of Southwest Africa in mind. The starting point for the Dernburg-Wagen was the reinforced chassis of one of Mercedes' delivery vans. A 4-speed gearbox was used, feeding the engine's torque and then distributing it to both axles via driveshafts and separate differentials. The entire system was carefully shielded from sand and dust and intensively lubricated and cooled. The total capacity of oils and fluids reached approximately 140 liters, demonstrating the scale of the technical complexity. This came at a high price. The massive drive components significantly limited the turning radius of the front wheels. To address the limited maneuverability, the designers opted for a solution that was completely unique for 1907. The rear wheels also steered. This allowed the enormous vehicle to maneuver on narrow paths and off-road. Another innovation were steel rims with pneumatic tires, which at the time were just beginning to replace solid rubber tires. The Dernburg-Wagen was used intensively. By 1910, it had covered over 10,000 kilometers, wearing out as many as 36 tires during that time, a fitting illustration of the harsh conditions it faced. The Dernburg-Wagen was impressive at first glance. It measured some 4.9 meters in length, a whopping 2.7 meters in height, and weighed approximately 3.6 tons. Despite its off-road purpose, the interior was luxuriously finished, in line with Mercedes standards of the time. The car was intended to provide comfort for a high-ranking government official, not just transport him to his destination. The body was partially open, improving ventilation in hot climates, and the cabin's high position provided good off-road visibility. The power source was a 4-cylinder gasoline engine with a displacement of approximately 6.8 liters, generating around 35 horsepower at just 800 RPM. While these figures may seem modest today, in the realities of the early 20th century, they were perfectly adequate. The Dernburg-Wagen reached a top speed of around 40 kilometers per hour on a level road and could climb gradients of up to 25%. Most important, however, was its ability to drive where other vehicles simply got bogged down or broke down. After several years in colonial service, the car returned to Germany and was assigned to the police. However, the complex four-wheel drive system proved too expensive to maintain, so the vehicle was converted to a traditional rear-wheel drive system. After the end of World War I, traces of the Dernburg-Wagen gradually disappeared, and the original example likely did not survive. Only period photographs, technical drawings, and descriptions remain. Although the Dernburg-Wagen was a single prototype, its significance in automotive history is immense. It was one of the first proofs that a car could be an effective off-road tool and that all-wheel drive made sense outside of sport. In 2006, Daimler recalled this design by building a 1:4 scale replica of the vehicle to highlight its pioneering achievements. The Dernburg-Wagen remains a symbolic ancestor of later military, expedition, and civilian off-road vehicles, including the legendary Mercedes 4x4 models.